All right, so then you need to remove this section of the intake housing. It's basically air cleaner tube, I guess, induction tube. You got a hose clamp here, which is an 8mm, and you got a hose clamp there, it's an 8mm, and you got a 1/2-inch hose right here. Remove the clamp off of it, pull the hose off of it. If it's not coming, use a screwdriver, help pry it off. Wiggle the whole housing, pull it off the throttle body. Same thing with the air cleaner upper tube, get that off. And there's 2 fasteners in the back, pull the whole thing off of it. This is what they look like. It goes into there. 2 grommets. Take this thing, put it off to the side, take off the upper engine cover, remove the oil cap to the side, and there's 3 more of those fasteners on each corner. Pull them up, pull the whole thing off. Okay, put your oil cap back on. If you're going to change your air filter, you need to remove the 4 screws that hold the upper housing on for the filter, and remove your mass airflow connector. You might have to push the gray piece off the connector, the retainer, so you can push in on it and pull it off. Once you got it off, then you can replace your filter. So now you can get to your spark plugs. To replace your spark plugs, you need to remove the 10mm bolts that are holding the coils in, wiggle them up and pull them up. Then you can pull the connectors off of each coil, and then you can pull out each spark plug. But before you do any of that, if it's full of debris, this one had a mouse nest in it. I had to vacuum it up, and then I blew it out with an air hose, get all the dirt out of there so it doesn't fall down inside the tubes, and then get it around your spark plug. Sometimes it might create enough junk to fall down in there that you cannot get a socket on the spark plug. So now once you pull the coils off, you want to blow out the tubes with your blowgun, and then you can get your socket on your spark plugs and pull your spark plugs out. So now you got all the bolts out, pull the coil, twist and pull them up. Now you can get your hand underneath it, and you can put your thumb on there and push the little clip down, and then you can pull it off, the connector off the coil. Do that to all 4 of them. Okay, you got all your coils out, and you want to inspect them. Make sure they're not all wet with oil. If they're wet with oil, then there's a problem inside the spark plug tubes. Also, you want to inspect for cracks or any like carbon tracking, or they're dried out and cracking. And then look inside there, see if they're all green or anything like that. If you see anything that's wrong with them, then you need to replace them. Okay. So now we're over here to the spark plugs, and you need to blow out the tubes. Just like that. Now you can get your socket on there and blow out the spark plugs. All right, you got all your spark plugs out. You want to check them out. You want to look at them. See if you see any cracks or anything, or any lines on them that do carbon tracking. And then you want to look at the electrodes. This is what the average they should look like. These are old. But if you got a bunch of black stuff on there, that means it's burning oil. If you got like a bunch of white, grayish, crusty stuff, that means you're burning antifreeze. And be internal engine problems. Okay, so these looking decent, so now I'll put new ones in. And make sure you torque them to the correct spec. All right, you get the spark plugs out. So you want to blow some air back through there to clean out the threads. Okay, and then you go to your spark plugs and you inspect them. These don't have really a gap on them, but you can't gap them. But you just look at them to make sure they're not smashed. on these. And then you just rub the porcelain on your fingers, and if dirt in your fingers will find any cracks in the porcelain. So that's what you want to do, to make sure they're not cracked or they're not collapsed and smashed in the box from somebody dropping them. Okay. And then you want to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, just a little bit. And then thread them in and snug them up. Okay. After you torque your spark plugs to 18 to 21 foot-pounds, you want to get your coils, you want to get some dielectric grease, and you want to rub a little bit inside the tube part. So that goes alongside the porcelains, like alongside here. Stick it inside there, and rub it in there with a little screwdriver, and that will help keep carbon tracking down on these. And also put a little bit of the grease, dielectric grease, along the base of the coil to help seal them and keep the dirt out. All right, and then you put them in there, twist them around as you get them in there, put them in there, put your bolt back on and snug your bolts up. They're just there to retain the coils from popping out, so you don't really need to torque them down, just snug them up. All right, the coils are in. What you need to do is you hold the coil down when you tighten your bolts up, and it's best off to plug them in before you put the bolts in, because it's easier to connect them. So once you got them all connected, your bolts in, snug them up, make sure that the connectors do not pull off, and then it'll complete the spark plugs. So then you need to put your engine cover back on, and then you got to take the cap off. Make sure you put the cap back on, and then you put your air cleaner box top back on, and then you put your induction tube on, and you can put a little bit of grease on the tube itself that goes on the throttle body, a little bit on there, and also a little bit on the mass airflow, and put some on your little stud grommets for there, and the easy installation. And once you get them all on there, make sure you tighten your 8mm clamps, the two. And then do not forget your vacuum, your breather tube here. And don't forget the little clamp. And that will complete your spark plugs. All right. If I helped you out doing the spark plugs, that's great. If you could help me out by subscribing to me, I appreciate it. If you already have, I appreciate that also. And I thank you.